Hello there, and welcome to Murder Most British. I'm Zach.
Hey, welcome. I'm Rachel.
Ooh, we got a doozy this week.
We do.
It was in the lineup. Like I've had it on the list because it's one of the biggest cases.
Yeah. We've brought this case forward because it's recently come back into.
Yeah, the only reason that we would even bring anything if something big happened.
Yeah.
Where you're just like, whoa, But
I think we've brought this case forward in our list of what we're going to be doing because it's now back in the news. So it's a way of us, because everybody's talking about this case kind of at the moment, it just helps to, bring it to the forefront for people that haven't actually know the ins and outs of the case.
Yeah, the whole story.
Yeah, so we kind of wanted to bring it forward and
go over it, and also, unfortunately, with the news, it also is focusing more on the perpetrator than the victims.
Yeah, and we do like to obviously have victims as forefront of any of the cases that we talk about. But before we step into this case, a brief note from the archive.
So since we launched our podcast, there's been more that we wanted to share. And on March 31st, we will be opening our Patreon.
Yay! Cannot wait. Looking forward to it.
Yep.
Inside that will be ad-free episodes, early access, and exclusive cases that we won't release on our main feed.
If you'd like to go deeper with us with more cases and that, we'll see you there on March 31st.
Yep. Join us on Patreon. If you enjoy the stories that we tell here, please follow the show and leave us a 5-star rating. That really, really will help us. It genuinely helps others to discover what we do. You'll find all our socials, Discord, and more in the link tree in the description below. Your support keeps the archive open and ensures no story is ever forgotten.
This episode includes discussions of child murder, violence, and allegations involving underage girls. Some listeners may find this material distressing. Listener discretion is advised. Let's get to the story.
Let's begin. So, on a warm Sunday evening in August of 2002, the Cambridgeshire town of Soham was settling into the quiet rhythm of a summer evening. Families were finishing barbecues, children were still outside, stretching the last hours of the school holidays. Inside a house on a quiet residential street, 2 10-year-old girls stood beneath a clock while their friend's mother lifted a camera. The photograph that she took would soon be seen across the whole country. A short time later, the girls slipped out of the house. They were only expected to be gone a few minutes. But as the evening turned into night, something was wrong. The girls weren't upstairs. They weren't in the street. And in the small town of Soham, no one could find them.
In the summer of 2002, the small Cambridgeshire town of Soham was the kind of place where people felt safe leaving the doors unlocked and children played freely in the streets. With the population just over 10,000 people-ish, it was a quiet English market town where local schools, churches, and small shops formed the center of daily life. For many families raising children here, Soham felt far removed from the darker stories that so often dominated the national news.
Well, among the children growing up in the town were 10-year-old best friends Holly Wells and Jessica Chapman. The girls attended St Andrew's Church of England primary school and were rarely seen apart. Teachers described them as lively and close, sharing classes, hobbies, and the same group of friends. Like many children their age, they spent much of their free time together outside of school. They visited each other's homes, rode bikes, played football, and spent time around the neighbourhood during the long summer holidays.
So on Sunday, the 4th of August 2002, Jessica spent the afternoon at Holly's house in Red House Gardens. Earlier that day, friends of the Wells' family had gathered for a summer barbecue, and the girls spent much of the afternoon moving between the house and the garden while the adults talked and prepared the food. At different points, they went upstairs to use the computer, listened to music in Holly's room, and wandered back outside to play as the relaxed gathering continued.
Yeah, so but this case, I remember because being in Cambridgeshire, obviously it was on our local news like straight away because I actually at the time was living in South Cambridgeshire. So, it was really kind of straight in the news media.
Yeah.
And I mean, at that time I was only 18 and it's very true, Soham, like where I was living.
Just quiet.
It felt so safe for us kids to, I did 12 years old,
Yeah.
exactly the same, doing what they were doing.
I remember them summer days.
You truck off to the shop on your own with your group of friends or just, you and your best friend buying sweets and just raking around your little town or your little village, everywhere felt safe at that sort of late 1990s, 2000s. It felt really safe for children.
Yeah.
But yeah, so on this evening at 5:04 p.m., Holly's mother, Nicola, took a photograph of the two girls standing beneath a clock inside the house. Both were smiling broadly and wearing matching red Manchester United shirts that belonged to Holly's older brother. I remember doing that. I used to steal my brother's shirts all the time. The image captured an ordinary moment on a summer afternoon, two friends enjoying the final weeks of the school holidays. And within days, that same photograph would appear on television screens and newspaper front pages across the country.
Later that evening, at around 5:30 p.m., the girls sat down to eat with Holly's parents and the visiting guests. Shortly after 6:15 p.m., they left the table. Holly's parents believed the girls had gone upstairs to Holly's bedroom. But a short time later, the two friends quietly slipped out of the house without telling anyone and headed out intending to buy sweets.
Well, they only had a small amount of money and expected to be gone for a few minutes. Their plan was simple: to walk to the nearby Ross Piers Sports Centre, where children often stopped to buy sweets from the vending machine. The sports centre was only about 5 minutes from the house, just a short and familiar walk through the streets that the girls knew well.
As they moved through Soham that evening, they passed landmarks that were part of everyday life in the town: the secondary school, the war memorial, the sports center, and the shops along the high street. At one point, a passerby reportedly pointed them out to his wife and joked, quote, "Look, two little Beckhams." Obviously, a reference to the Manchester United shirts that they were wearing.
Yeah, I think because they had number 10 on the back.
Yeah,
and
had
obviously
Beckham on it.
David Beckham used to.
Yeah, because he was huge then.
Yeah, it was a massive football influence back then. Very, very at his peak in football. But they obviously were two little keen Manchester United supporters, bless them. Well, at the same time, another figure lived quietly within the community, Ian Huntley. He had been working since November 2001 as the caretaker at Soham Village College, the town's secondary school. By the summer of 2002, he was living nearby with his girlfriend, Maxine Carr, in a house on College Close. But by Easter 2002, Maxine Carr was working at St Andrew's Church of England Primary School in Soham, where the girls had attended. From the summer term of that year, she was the temporary classroom assistant to the Year 5 class, attended by Holly and Jessica. The girls therefore came into contact with Huntley through knowing Carr, rather than as a result of his employment at the Soham Village College.
Before moving to Cambridgeshire, Huntley had spent most of his life in the Humberside area of northern England. Between 1995 and 1999, Huntley came to the attention of Humberside Police and Social Services in relation to 11 separate incidents, 9 of which involved allegations of sexual offenses. These included 4 allegations of unlawful sexual intercourse with girls under 16, 4 allegations of rape, and 1 allegation of indecent assault on an 11-year-old girl. He was neither convicted nor cautioned in relation to any of those incidents.
Well, in the years that followed, Huntley moved between jobs and locations across the Humberside area. By late 2001, he had secured the caretaker position at Soham Village College, a role that placed him on the school grounds each day and made him a familiar figure in the town. By the summer of 2002, both had become familiar figures in Soham. Carr worked at the local primary school while Huntley had carried out maintenance duties around the secondary school campus. Residents saw them in passing shops along the streets or around the school grounds.
Yeah, just kind of integrated into the town. Yeah. But yeah, I just couldn't believe that he didn't get any sort of conviction or anything for all of them. That's crazy.
Yeah,
so
so
not
there's
one of them got
obviously
him.
a lot of accusations or against him on them cases. And if I remember rightly, in this case, after when it all went to court about Holly and Jessica, they weren't allowed to know about these prior accusations.
Because it didn't really have.
So obviously,
it's one of those things with the court where it didn't really have any bearing on what that case.
Yeah.
But knowing that history, you're just like, well, what the fuck?
Yeah. So obviously there was the media weren't allowed to report that either at the time until the case was done. So obviously we'll go into a little bit more about that when we come to telling you about the court side of things.
Well, okay. So at 6:28 p.m., CCTV cameras at the Ross Piers Sports Center captured Holly and Jessica crossing the forecourt together, still wearing the shirts. Around that time, a receptionist at the center, Claire Norton, buzzed the two girls into the building, although she later said she could not be certain they were Holly and Jessica. Inside, another witness, Karen Greenwood, noticed two girls in red shirts before leaving the gym.
Well, as Greenwood was driving away a few minutes later at around 6:32 or 6:33 p.m., she saw the same two girls walking along College Road near College Close, a quiet residential street lined with ordinary houses. They were only a short distance from Ian Huntley's home. After that moment, no one saw Holly or Jessica alive again. At some point after passing along College Road, the two girls had entered Huntley's house on College Close. Exactly how or why they went inside has never been fully established. What is known, though, is that once they entered the house, both girls had died there within a short period of time.
Later that evening, Huntley moved the girls' bodies from the house and drove them away from Soham. The journey took him across the flat farmland of the Cambridgeshire Fens and into neighbouring Suffolk. Near a remote farm track known as Common Drove, close to RAF Lakenheath, he placed the bodies in a roadside ditch surrounded by long grass and vegetation. At the site, he attempted to set the bodies on fire using petrol before leaving them concealed in the ditch.
After returning to Soham, Huntley began trying to erase what had happened. The girls' clothing was cut up and burnt. The charred remains were hidden in refuse containers at Soham Village College. Inside the house on College Close, traces of the evening were also cleaned away.
From the street, nothing looked unusual. College Close appeared exactly as it always did, and anyone passing that evening would have had no notice to even stop or look twice. By the end of that Sunday night, the families of Holly and Jessica were searching for them. No one yet understood what had already happened.
When Holly and Jessica slipped out of Holly's house that evening, no one realised that they had gone. Holly's parents believed the girls were upstairs, and for a time, the two friends were simply assumed to be somewhere inside the house. Between 8 and 8:30 p.m, as the guests from the Wells family barbecue prepared to leave, it became clear that the girls were nowhere in the house or garden. Nicola Wells began searching the property and calling for them, but there was no answer.
This is really crazy to me because it makes me think of my own childhood. Because I was in the 5th grade. I do believe we were living in Tennessee at the time. And I had just kind of toddled off toward the shops. I think it was either a Kmart or a Walmart or something. But you remember back when they used to have those little gaming things where you could go in, you could just play it or whatever? Oh, yeah, I got zoned out.
A little handheld game
No,
machine.
it was like they'd have a TV and that you could play like Sega or whatever.
Yeah.
And I just got zoned out. I think it was like the new Street Fighter or something. I just got zoned out for hours, just playing.
Time just passes, don't it, when you're engrossed in stuff like that. Yeah.
I'm sitting there just, having a great time for hours and hours. I go back home. Oh boy.
Your parents were freaking out.
They were absolutely like, mom was bought like crazy, and they were obviously upset at me.
Yeah.
Of course, but they were just glad that I was fine. Like they were saying that we were looking in dumpsters and ditches.
The worry for any parent who, I mean, obviously,
it's just crazy how similar.
Always,
they were in year 5, and that's when and I was like, man, it really gets you.
I think cases like this, it's really like with my daughter growing up, I've always then tried to make sure she tells me where she is. If she changes what direction or whose friends she's going to.
Or like when she was crawling out the window.
Oh my God. I mean, kids can be such worrying little, my daughter, Jesus, 5 years old, she asked to go and play with her friend at her house. And I had said no. It was going to get dark soon. It was sort of late, winter time, and it was 4 o'clock, and I knew by 5 it was going to be pitch black. So I've said no. I've then gone to the loo, quick 2 minutes up there, come down, and she's not in the house. She's not down in the lounge. And that I did phone the police because I was terrified. I'm thinking, she's not in the house. Where the hell is, I've gone out looking for her around the street. Couldn't find her at all. She weren't at her friend's house that she wanted to go to. So, I mean, I can slightly imagine how much worry.
Oh, yeah, just that
Holly and Jessica's parents
that little
had.
bit
Yeah.
that we experienced, like that was something I put my parents through, and something with like how she ran off and you're just absolutely terrified.
Yeah, because your head goes to automatic, like, it's getting dark. Obviously, it was evening, so it would have been dark come, 8, 9 o'clock, it would start getting dark, and you do panic. You think, oh my God, where in the hell could they be?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So anyways, at 8:40 p.m., she contacted Jessica's mother, Sharon Chapman. When Sharon rang Jessica's mobile phone, it was switched off. As the time passed with no sign of the girls, concern quickly began to grow. Friends and relatives started checking nearby streets and gardens, calling the girls' names and knocking on neighbors' doors. At 9:55 p.m., the disappearance was formally reported to the police, and then officers arrived in Soham roughly 35 minutes later to begin searching.
Well, through the night, officers from Cambridge Constabulary joined relatives and local residents searching the streets, parks and footpaths around the town. Torches swept across gardens, hedgerows and alleyways as people called the girls' names into the darkness. Volunteers knocked on doors and checked places where children might have wandered or hidden. At first, many people believed that Holly and Jessica would soon be found somewhere nearby. But as the hours passed without any sign of them, the situation began to look increasingly serious.
During those early hours of the search, Ian Huntley also appeared among the people looking for the missing girls. At around 10:35 p.m., 4 local villagers searching near College Close encountered him. Huntley told them he had not seen Holly or Jessica that evening. Around 1 a.m., a police officer saw him again near his home, where he offered to help with the search. Over the following hours, however, his accounts of the events began to shift.
By around 1:30 a.m., Huntley was telling firefighters that he had seen the girls at about 6:30 p.m. earlier that evening. Later, he began offering different times. At around 2:30 a.m, he told a friend of the Chapmans that he had seen the girls at about 5:50 p.m, and later told a police officer it had been closer to 5:45 p.m. The officer also noted that Huntley's hair appeared wet, as though he had recently took a shower.
And those times make, because they can really this was the thing, they could really pinpoint a lot of the timings.
Yeah.
And if he's saying that time, it's like, well, no, they were actually with us having dinner.
Yeah.
What do you mean? It's like he just couldn't quite, he was in a rush to have a cover story or something.
He clearly was trying to, he clearly just didn't know what time, he's trying to kind of come up with something without thinking.
Because also it could have been, he thought, they're going to find out that they came by here. There's going to be a witness or CCTV of some kind that puts them close.
Possibly he's thinking, yeah.
He's like, oh shit. And trying to come up with something and just thankfully blundered like an idiot.
In some way, just solely trying to distance himself from, seeing them at specific time that
timings
they were
are crucial.
Fully missing, yeah.
Well, the detectives would later note how quickly that timeline had changed of his, how he said things went down. Another detail soon entered the picture, though. Maxine Carr, who had traveled to Grimsby that weekend to visit family, later said she had spoken to Huntley by phone at 6:24 p.m. During that call, she said that he mentioned that some girls had asked about her. In the days that followed, Carr told police that she had been at home with Huntley on the night the girls disappeared, a statement that appeared to provide him with an alibi.
Well, by the morning of the 5th of August, the disappearance had become a major missing person investigation. Police began door-to-door inquiries throughout Soham, asking residents whether they had seen the girls the previous evening. Witnesses confirmed sightings of Holly and Jessica walking through the town that evening. Detectives carefully mapped each sighting in an effort to trace the girls' movements and determine where they had last been seen.
Well, as the search widened, the scale of the operation grew rapidly. Helicopters scanned the surrounding countryside, while police dogs searched hedgerows and drainage ditches. Divers examined nearby rivers, ponds, and waterways. Hundreds of volunteers joined organized searches of farmland, woodland, and open fields surrounding Soham. Personnel from the nearby United States Air Force bases also assisted with the effort. Within days, the search had become one of the largest missing person operations ever mounted in Britain.
That's nice. The personnel from the Air Force base. So that would be Lakenheath, RAF Lakenheath, and RAF Mildenhall.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was at Lakenheath.
You was based at Lakenheath, not at in 2002 when this case happened.
Yeah,
but
I would have been out there.
You was based there, wasn't you?
I would have been out there. It's a people that you're just like, hey, we need to help.
I think, especially with children missing, I think everybody will come together.
Oh yeah,
strangers and whoever. You just get out there and try and help and do your best to find these children. Well, the disappearance quickly drew national attention. Photographs of Holly and Jessica appeared on television broadcasts and newspaper front pages across the country. The photograph taken earlier that evening by Holly's mother quickly became one of the most widely recognised images in Britain. Appeals for information were broadcast repeatedly as police urged anyone who might have seen the girls to come forward.
As the story spread, public appeals intensified. News International announced a reward of £150,000 for information that might help locate the girls. Soon afterwards, the Express newspapers offered a £1 million reward for information leading to their safe return or the arrest and conviction of whoever was responsible. Police hotlines were soon flooded with calls from members of the public reporting possible sightings or passing on information investigators might be able to use.
Well, among those appealing directly to the girls was England footballer David Beckham, then playing for Manchester United. In a televised message, he said, quote, "Please go home. You are not in any kind of trouble. Your parents love you deeply and want you back. Behind the scenes, detectives were working through an enormous volume of information. Many reports turned out to be mistaken sightings or unrelated leads, but officers checked each one carefully. At the height of the operation, around 400 police officers were assigned to the case, making it one of the largest investigations of its kind in modern British policing.
Wow. That is a lot of people. All the police
Well,
and the people looking.
Children, they don't just disappear.
Yeah.
They've got to be somewhere.
Yep.
And so, all hands on the case, going through and it's time consuming to go through all this different information coming in.
Yeah.
And
it's going to be a huge volume of
course. And
you
want to try to do it and get through it as quick as possible to find the legitimate sightings and witness accounts of sightings and stuff. So
crazy.
Madness.
Yeah. Well, as part of the inquiry, detectives also examined individuals who might pose a risk to children. Police examined the sex offenders register and carried out checks on known offenders in the region, while investigators conducted background checks on people connected to the area. At the same time, investigators continued reconstructing the girls' movements through witness statements and CCTV images. Gradually, a clearer picture began to emerge of the route Holly and Jessica had taken through Soham before they disappeared.
Well, as detectives continued examining the evidence, attention increasingly turned to Ian Huntley. Investigators had already noted the changing timeline that he had given during the first night of the search, and they began looking more closely at his movements and statements. During the search, Huntley also appeared in television interviews about the missing girls. He later said he had initially been reluctant to speak to the media and had agreed only on the understanding that the footage would be broadcast locally rather than nationally. In the days that followed, detectives compared Huntley's statements with witness accounts and other emerging evidence as the investigation continued to develop.
That's weird. Oh, just don't broadcast this nationally. It only needs to be local.
Yeah,
it's because people know you up north, and they'll see who you are.
It obviously now with hindsight, back then when you're watching him being interviewed on the news, you wouldn't have known any of that. And this is the reason why, he's asking. But you can think, well, actually, in hindsight, yes, he's clearly not wanting people from, Humberside saying, well, hang on a minute, look at this guy, because he, you're interviewing this guy, but he's been accused of this, many, in this area.
I'm going to put an eye on that boy.
Who's to say So trying to definitely still try to deter them from looking at him.
It's definitely a red flag.
Yeah, definitely.
Jesus. Well, meanwhile, investigators were examining the movements of Huntley's girlfriend, Maxine Carr. Carr had additionally told the police that she had been home with Huntley, but the detectives soon discovered that she had actually traveled to Grimsby that weekend to visit family over 100 miles away. That revelation meant Huntley no longer had the alibi that had appeared to account for his movements on the night the girls vanished.
Yeah, I mean, that's just crazy. I mean, how can you... I couldn't...
Give someone an alibi like that?
No, and also because how in the hell you would not get found out that you're not actually even in the same town as this person, a possible suspect, let alone in the same house as them for the weekend. You're actually 100 miles away.
Yeah.
The police are not going to find this out. Of course they are.
I mean, the cops ain't stupid. They're going to be like, oh, well, let's fact check this real quick. And there you go.
From the sounds of it, Ian Huntley and Maxine Carr don't seem to, in my opinion, have had the full inkling that they would ever be looked at as suspects.
Well, I don't think that she believed that he would do something like that either. It was like, just stupidly.
Yeah.
Stupidly.
Very naive.
Yep.
Well, during searches at Soham Village College, officers made a significant discovery. Inside a refuse container in a building known as the Hangar, investigators found charred fragments of clothing. Forensic examination later had confirmed that the burned material matched the Manchester United shirts that Holly and Jessica had been wearing when they left home. So in the early hours of the 17th of August 2002, detectives finally arrested both Huntley and Carr at their home.
Yeah, he disposed of evidence where he works. Okay.
But then that says to me that they clearly didn't think that they were suspects or being seen as suspects.
Well, he just did, whatever was convenient. And it was more convenient because he knew the place, he knew the college, he knew where to go and where to dispose of stuff, whatever. And it was more convenient for him to do that, possibly. But it was just like, are you kidding me? You're disposing of it where you work. So now they've connected you to that. And then you've said that you've seen him. You have no alibi. It's just all the points start to connect. And
that's the thing, with the alibi situation, once that became that he then had no alibi, you become a suspect.
Well, okay. So officers searched Huntley's house on College Close. Investigators noticed that the rooms appeared to have been recently and carefully cleaned. Despite this, forensic examination later revealed small traces of blood spatter inside the house. Investigators also examined Huntley's red Ford Fiesta. Forensic specialists analyzed fibers, soil, pollen, and other traces recovered from the vehicle, along with material collected from the house and surrounding areas. Traces of chalk and other materials found on the car were consistent with the remote track near the RAF Lakenheath base where the bodies had been discovered.
Well, later that same day, a gamekeeper named Keith Pryor was searching land near RAF Lakenheath in neighbouring Suffolk. Beside a remote farm track known as Common Drove, he discovered the two bodies concealed in a roadside ditch. Police quickly sealed off the area while the forensic teams examined the scene. The location lay roughly 10 miles from Soham, surrounded by open farmland. The discovery brought the search for Holly and Jessica to a tragic end. Their remains were later formally identified through DNA testing. News of the discovery spread quickly across Soham. Shock and grief replaced the hope that had carried the search for nearly 2 weeks. I think it
That'd be
also,
devastating.
It not just across Soham, across the whole country, there was shock and grief. And
it was, because it was so widely, it was every day.
Everybody was following this case and hoping that the girls would be found alive, safe and well. And I think this just devastated the whole country.
Yeah. Well, then it's gone to trial. So the trial of Ian Huntley and Maxine Carr began at the Old Bailey in London on the 3rd of November 2003, more than a year after the deaths of Holly and Jessica. By then, the Soham case had become one of the most closely followed criminal investigations in modern Britain. Huntley faced 2 counts of murder. Carr, his former girlfriend, was charged with conspiring to pervert the course of justice after providing Huntley with his false alibi during the early stages of the investigation.
They did look into charging her with assisting an offender, but them 2 charges dropped. But opening the case, prosecutors told the jury that the evidence would show Holly and Jessica had entered Huntley's house on College Close during their walk through Soham on the evening of the 4th of August 2002. They argued that the girls had died there while Huntley was alone with them. Because of the condition of the remains, pathologists could not determine a precise medical cause of death, but the court heard that the most likely explanation was asphyxia.
Over the following weeks, jurors heard extensive forensic evidence linking Huntley, his home, and his car to the deaths of the 2 girls. Scientists described the recovery of charred fragments of the clothing from that refuse container in Soham Village College, where Huntley was working as the caretaker. Forensic testing also identified 154 transfers of hair and fiber evidence between items connected to Huntley and belongings associated with Holly and Jessica.
During the trial, the jury was also taken to Soham and to the remote ditch near the RAF Lakenheath where the girls' bodies had been discovered. The visits allowed the jurors to see the locations central to the case, the streets where the girls had last been seen walking, the house on College Close, and the isolated farm track at Common Drove.
Prosecutors also drew attention to Huntley's behavior in the days after the girls disappeared. Jurors were shown the television interviews he had given while the search was underway, in which he described seeing the girls and appeared to present himself as a concerned witness. The prosecution argued that Huntley had deliberately placed himself in front of cameras in order to appear helpful while concealing his own involvement, which is absolutely wild and cruel.
A lot of criminals tend to do that. They
insert themselves into
And I think the mindset, in my opinion, just in my opinion, I mean, I'm not professional, but the mindset of doing that, I believe that it's a way of them
reliving it.
Either that, but mostly to try to know what's happening, but also try to use that in order to mold
the narrative.
And make out that, they're so worried as well, they could possibly never be a suspect, So it's a case of
true,
trying to hide behind being in the forefront of a case. Attention during the trial also turned to Maxine Carr. Prosecutors had told the jury that during the early stages of the investigation, she had falsely claimed to have been at home with Huntley on the night that the girls disappeared, providing him with an alibi at a crucial moment in the inquiry. Carr's defence team maintained that she had believed Huntley was innocent and had repeated his account because she trusted him.
Awful.
She was sat in the dock with him, pretty much side by side.
Yeah.
She did not once look at him from the court transcripts that I had read. He tried to make eye contact with her, but she was adamant. She didn't want to look at him.
Hell no. Well, by the later stages of the trial, Huntley no longer disputed several key facts. He accepted that the girls had entered his house, that they had died while he was alone with them, and that he had later moved the bodies and tried to destroy the evidence by burning their clothing. The central question for the jury became whether Huntley's explanation that the deaths had been accidental could be believed.
Well, when Huntley entered the witness box, he gave his version of events. He claimed that Holly and Jessica had come into the house because Holly had a nosebleed. According to his account, Holly later slipped and fell into a partially filled bath and died. He said Jessica then began screaming, and that when he tried to silence and restrain her, he accidentally caused her death as well. Huntley insisted he never intended to harm either girl. The court's transcripts said that he admitted to, with Jessica, that because she was screaming, he put his arms out and covered her mouth.
Yeah.
And that's how she died. But I'm thinking, dude, just tell the truth.
Yeah. Just come out with it. There's at some point you should be able to say, you know what? It's over.
Yeah.
They've got it all. And I just tell the truth.
Mm-hmm.
But he just refused to tell the truth. So the prosecutor, Richard Latham QC, strongly challenged that account. In his closing speech, he told jurors that Huntley's explanation did not match the forensic evidence or the sequence of lies he had told the police and the public. Latham argued that whatever had begun inside that house had likely been sexually motivated and had gone wrong. At that point, he said, both girls had to die in order to prevent them revealing what had happened.
Yeah, the forensic evidence not matching. I mean, he was saying that there was that one had a nosebleed. Well, the evidence didn't show that there was any blood found on her T-shirt. So there was no blood traces to corroborate his nosebleed theory. But Huntley's defence team urged the jury to reject the charge of murder and instead return verdicts of manslaughter. They argued that there was no proof that Huntley had intended to kill or caused really serious injury. Carr also gave evidence in her own defence, telling the court that she had not known Huntley had murdered the girls. Her lawyers said that she had lied to police out of misplaced loyalty and fear rather than knowledge of a crime.
After several weeks of testimony, legal arguments, and closing speeches, the case was handed to the jury. Deliberations lasted around 17 hours. On the 17th of December 2003, the jury returned 11-1 majority verdicts. Ian Huntley was found guilty of the murders of Holly Wells and Jessica Chapman. Maxine Carr was found guilty of conspiring to pervert the course of justice, but cleared of 2 counts of assisting an offender.
Yes, following the verdicts, the court moved to sentencing. Mr. Justice Moses addressed Huntley directly, telling him, quote, "You murdered them both. You were the only person who knows how you murdered them. In your lies and manipulation up to this very day, you have increased the suffering you have caused the 2 families." Huntley was sentenced to 2 life sentences for the murders, with a minimum term of 40 years before he could be considered for release. Maxine Carr was sentenced to 3.5 years in prison.
Yep, and he still never told the truth.
Nope.
Even after that. Well,
Scumbag.
Scumbag. In the days following the verdicts at the Old Bailey, attention turned back to the families of Holly and Jessica. For more than a year, they had endured an ordeal that unfolded in public view. From the desperate searches through the fields around Soham to the long investigation and trial in London. When the court process ended, the headlines began to fade, but for the families, the loss remained unchanged. The challenge ahead was learning how to continue their lives without 2 girls who had once filled their homes with laughter and love.
In Soham, the impact of the case was impossible to ignore. The town that had come together to search fields, parks and farmland for the missing girls now had to live with the knowledge that the tragedy had unfolded within its own streets. For many people in Soham, the murders of Holly Wells and Jessica Chapman became a defining moment in the town's history, permanently changing the way the community saw itself.
Even before the trial had begun, the country had paused to remember the 2 girls. On the 30th of August 2002, a memorial service was held at Ely Cathedral.
Beautiful cathedral. I've been there. Yeah,
Yep.
It's so beautiful.
Well, it was attended by around 2,000 mourners, including family members, teachers, classmates, and residents from across the region. Messages of sympathy arrived from throughout Britain, and football clubs across the country observed moments of silence before matches. The service became a powerful moment of collective mourning, reflecting the depth of grief felt far beyond the town where the girls had lived.
In the months that followed, one particular place in Soham became a grim reminder of the tragedy. The house on College Close, where the killings had taken place, began to attract visitors drawn by curiosity. For local residents, it became an unwanted symbol of what had happened. In April of 2004, local authorities arranged for the building to be demolished. The site was later cleared and redeveloped, removing a physical landmark that had become closely associated with the case.
Yeah, you have the weird stuff, weird curiosity.
Yeah,
where
I
people
don't
want to
get
see
that.
the house.
I mean, I get it to an extent, but just no, it's just
no.
not something that I mean, the family's still living in Soham, and they're not going to want to see masses of people standing outside this monster's house.
Mm-hmm. But it's a curiosity that affects. Look at all the Jack the Ripper stuff.
Yeah,
they have tours. You can go to all the different sites.
To be fair, I'm still shocked that he even had pen pals, for God's sake. Who in the hell in their right mind wants to write to these people?
Well, we just watched something about that where there's the women that they write letters to
there's
the
a name for it,
murderers.
isn't there?
Yeah,
I can't remember what it's called, but I don't
it's
get
weird.
it. I don't get it. Why do you want to talk to these monsters?
Well, there's that separation as well, because they're never going to get out, and you can talk to them or whatever. They're never going to be able to get out to do anything, really. I don't know. It's a weird thing.
I don't know.
Creepy.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to talk to somebody like that.
Well, beyond Soham, the case also raised serious questions about how Ian Huntley had been able to secure employment at a school despite earlier allegations involving young girls during his time in the Humberside area. Although those allegations had not resulted in criminal convictions, it later emerged that Huntley had come to the attention of police several times before the murders. Crucially, information about those incidences had not been properly recorded or shared between police forces, meaning the details did not appear during background checks carried out before he began even working at the Soham Village College.
Yeah, so back then, I think now, it's such a good idea to have one central police force database that all police forces can access. So, it can kind of try to prevent people like this with, terrible accusations against that. Okay, he wasn't found guilty of them accusations, but yet still it should appear on a file, that these have
something.
People have reported allegations about this person, so that when they do a DBS check, you can safeguard better, because you can think, well, actually, this person, yes, although he hasn't been found guilty and convicted of these crimes,
if you've got
there's been plenty of allegations.
If you've got 9 allegations
of a serious nature, that he wouldn't be the right person to be working within the school, so then you wouldn't offer them a job. But in response to the concerns, the government established a public inquiry chaired by Sir Michael
Bouchard, I think.
Oh, sorry.
I think it's Bouchard.
Sorry, Michael. Well, the Bouchard inquiry examined how police forces recorded and shared intelligence about individuals who might pose a risk to children. Investigators reviewed thousands of police documents and records in an effort to understand how information relating to Huntley's earlier allegations had failed to surface during the vetting process for his employment.
When the inquiry reported in 2004, it concluded that serious systemic failures had occurred. Intelligence records had not been properly maintained, and communicated between police forces it's just been inadequate, full stop. The report issued 31 recommendations aimed at improving how police intelligence and safeguarding information were recorded and shared.
Well, those recommendations led to significant reforms in safeguarding systems across the country. Procedures for criminal record checks were strengthened, and new mechanisms were introduced to improve the sharing of intelligence between police forces and organisations responsible for protecting children. Over time, these changes contributed to the development of the safeguarding framework used today, including systems that eventually evolved into the Disclosure and Barring Service, responsible for vetting people working with children and vulnerable individuals.
Yeah, the old DBS check. This is where, when I was researching and writing this up, it made me think of, in America, the Amber Alert system. So whenever a kid or whatever goes missing, the Amber Alert goes up and it goes out nationwide. Look for this kid.
Didn't you get alerts on your phones?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
that's a good idea, and we should have that over here.
I do believe it has crossed national lines to where other countries have adopted a similar thing. But
the UK is always pretty slow on catching up with the rest of the world, to be fair.
Just in case people don't know, what the history of it, in 96, a 9-year-old girl named Amber Hagerman in Arlington, Texas, she went missing So it really made people think about what's going on. And she was unfortunately murdered, but it changed how people do things. And the Amber Alert system has saved hundreds upon hundreds of kids since then.
I think, because obviously I think we all understand that time is of the essence, and, the statistics of something tragic are likely to have to happen. The window of opportunity to try to find the children alive, or,
But I just thought it was such a great legacy.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, I would rather have them be alive and well and whatever, but the same with Amber, with the DBS checks, the enhancement and all these recommendations, I can only imagine how many people have been saved because of those recommendations and all that coming up saying, hey, we need to fix this fucking system because of this. So I just think of it like their legacy is that the saving of thousands of people probably from predators.
Yeah, most definitely. Time is of the essence, and as soon as you can get information out there that this person, and nationwide, people can then be on the lookout.
Yeah.
And if they spot anything, see them in a car driving past, and you just happen to catch a face or whatever, you can pass that information on straight away, and the police are then
if you get that alert,
and
you put it on as many screens as possible, and people look at it, and they put it's in their mind.
Yeah, fresh.
Well, anyway, let's get back to it.
Yeah.
So for Maxine Carr, the aftermath of the trial brought consequences that would shape the rest of her life. Although she had not been convicted of involvement in the murders themselves, she had been found guilty of conspiring to pervert the course of justice. So the conviction generated intense public hostility. Carr served around 21 months of her 3.5-year sentence before being released from prison in 2004.
Because of the threats made against her after the case, the High Court granted Carr lifelong anonymity in 2005. The ruling allowed her to live under a new identity and prevented the media from publishing information that might reveal her location or current name. The order was highly unusual, reflecting the level of public anger surrounding the case and the concerns that her safety could be put at risk if her identity became known.
Meanwhile, Ian Huntley began serving his sentence within the prison system. Because of the notoriety of his crimes, he was held in high-security prisons and remained under strict supervision. Prisoners convicted of crimes against children are often targets for violence, and Huntley was attacked on several occasions during his years in custody.
Yeah, so let's go into some of these attacks. So in 2005, while held at HMP Wakefield, Ian Huntley was scolded when convicted killer Mark Hobson threw boiling water over him. 5 years later, in 2010, another prisoner at the HMP Franklin, Damien Fawkes, slashed Huntley's throat with a makeshift weapon. Although he survived both assaults, the incidents reflected the hostility that prisoners convicted of such crimes often face inside the prison system.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's probably a lot of them, even though they're monsters themselves. There is a sort of code, honor among thieves type of thing, where like this guy is despicable. And it was such a massive case that
and
everybody knows
about.
I
think from what I've reading and following like documentaries and stuff on this case, he seemed to have been quite enjoyed the fact that he was notable.
Yeah.
His
notoriety.
He see himself as being famous. And I think that he tried to use that in prison as make himself feel bigger than he...
Yeah, as a tool to get himself through it. Well, in 2025, Huntley briefly returned to public attention after reports emerged that he had been seen in prison wearing a red football-style shirt bearing the number 10.
Disgusting.
Yeah. The details sparked widespread criticism, with commentators suggesting it could be interpreted as a reference to the murders. Prison staff reportedly removed the shirt following those complaints.
Good. In my view, that's just
gross.
Absolutely abhorrent.
Well, from some of the reports, I'll just say allegedly, like some of the guys, other prisoners, they were like, "You're a sick bastard," because he was wearing that shirt. So you can just show just from that people will be like, "This guy's got to go."
He's definitely was not a likable character in prison. Well, more than 2 decades after the murders, the case returned briefly to the national headlines. On the 26th of February 2026, while being held at HMP Frankland in County Durham, Huntley was attacked during a workshop session by another inmate. The suspected attacker was Anthony Russell, a triple murderer serving a whole life sentence. During the assault, Huntley was struck repeatedly with what reports described as a spiked metal pole.
Goodness gracious. And reportedly, allegedly, he said a few things afterwards, after the guards got him. He's like, "I've done it. I've killed him."
Yeah, that's what's quoted to be he had been heard saying.
Yeah, crazy. Huntley suffered severe head injuries and was rushed to hospital in critical condition. Doctors placed him on life support as they attempted to stabilize his condition, but the damage to his brain proved catastrophic. After several days in intensive care, medical staff concluded that recovery was unlikely. He had like a 5% chance.
Yeah, he was stuck in a coma. There was no sort of...
there was barely a chance he was going to survive.
No activity.
Yeah. So life support treatment was withdrawn on the 6th of March, and Ian Huntley died the following day at the age of 52. His death brought an end to the life of the man responsible for one of the most shocking child murder cases in modern British history.
I'm going to keep my opinions to myself on his death.
Good. Well, I say the comments online and that, a lot of people were like, "Oh, the guy that killed him should get time off his sentence." That dude,
it's like, no.
He was awful. It was monster on monster crime. And you don't, no, come on, get a grip.
At the end of the day, the guy that killed him shouldn't be praised in the sense that, he's not a hero. He's not...
he's a triple murderer.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, the guy alleged guy that supposedly killed him, there's a court case going on now in regards to...
Yeah, it is ongoing.
The suspected killer of
allegedly.
Ian Huntley. So we can't really go into too much of that at the moment. Maybe we can revisit it a little bit.
Yeah, we'll do an update later.
Yeah. But allegedly, the guy has not attacked him because of what Ian Huntley had done, crime with his crime. It seems to have been for a different reason.
Yeah, but it looked like at some point somebody was going to get him.
He was being repeatedly attacked, over the years. So, it kind of feels inevitable that something serious would eventually happen. So,
yeah.
All I can say on the matter is that I'm not sad that he's dead.
Not going to shed a tear. Nope.
But anyway, the legacy of the Soham murders is not defined by this monster who committed them. Instead, it lies in the memory of Holly and Jessica, 2 children whose friendship and lives were cut tragically short. Their deaths exposed serious failures in the systems designed to protect children, and the reforms that followed reshaped safeguarding practices across the United Kingdom.
More than 2 decades later, those changes remain part of the structures intended to protect vulnerable people. And in Soham, the names of Holly Wells and Jessica Chapman continue to be remembered, not only for the tragedy that took them, but for the community that came together in the search for them and the determination that such a loss should never, ever happen again.
Well, that was the story of the murder of Holly and Jessica. Now,
Absolutely.
We know that you're going to have, everybody's got strong views on this case. Obviously, we'd like to hear what you thought of the case.
Want to know my view?
Is it audible?
It's the American in me. Okay. With capital punishment, it's one of those things where you have to have, without a doubt, that's who, they knew it was him. And for me, like I remember you posted about him dying, and I was like, they should have strapped him to old Sparky.
Yeah,
and he could have fucking rode the lightning straight to hell.
I posted a post on Facebook, on my personal Facebook, about, I was glad that he had passed.
It's one of those things where, yes, one less fucking monster like that.
Well, there's so much, I mean, is it really justice, him spending his life in jail? He's still being fed, took care of, basically. Any health concerns, he's taken care of.
Yeah.
And in my view, if somebody gets whole life order, they should just be done. I mean, there's so much to it. Taxpayers are paying for their upkeep. There's never ever going to be any justice for the victims.
Yeah.
In this situation. So yeah, in my view, I definitely think that the topic and conversation needs to be had about possibly bringing back the death penalty in the UK, especially for absolutely, diabolical cases that you can't refute. The evidence is
beyond a reasonable doubt.
Exactly.
They done it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, but I mean, the UK, things are going a bit downhill.
Going a bit whack.
They're wanting to
go a bit weird.
Minimize jury trials and things like that. So
yeah, we talked about that before, where they wanted to.
That's a big no-no. They should not do that.
It's a fundamental part of protection from the state, because you have 12 random people chosen to then hear your case, and then they judge you. Not a judge, not whatever state official. It is a jury of your peers.
Yeah, I think it's
fundamental.
The UK's human right to have a right to a jury if you're being accused of a serious crime.
I think it is a cornerstone of the justice system. It is a pivotal. You need it.
Yeah, so fingers crossed going forward. Let us know your views on the jury service.
We'll see how that shakes out.
Possibly minimised or whatever. Anything. Let us know about your cases that you've enjoyed listening to over the past sort of cases that we've done. This case, and
hey, if you know a case that you'd like to hear us cover,
drop us in the comments. Let us know. Maybe a case that we've not heard of, or we've not got in our list of up and coming cases that we're going to cover. So
anywhere anywhere we do UK, Ireland, surrounding islands, Channel Islands, all that.
Yep.
So
Scotland, Wales, and just let us know if there's a case that you think that our other listeners would like to hear.
Yep.
That'd be great. Well, if you like the work that we do here in the archive, please follow the show and leave us a 5-star rating. It really does help these stories reach further and keeps the archive growing.
Everything you need. Socials, Discord, it's all in the links to the description below. So go down there.
Go take a look, and until next week, stay safe and stay curious.
Bye-bye.